what makes this particular episode so special is that they finally given me a mic. If you know, you know.
As a lot of you know, Olliday started as an extension to creatives Fridays that we used to host within our office. And pretty much, I think, yeah, we started inviting external guests to come in.
External speakers as well.
And so this evolved into pretty much like an holiday from the everyday for us.
What we like to call an holiday.
We realized that this online gathering was just getting more and more ripple effect, and it was creating a great chance for people to get inspired beyond our studio.
And while our wish list of speakers has grown and keeps growing, the beauty of the unknown becomes even more exciting and adventurous for us, as the story of how today came together will prove.
So our very first guest, Siva, introduced us to Kshitij, and then Kshitij introduced us to Sid. We obviously had never heard about Sid, but happy accidents are beautiful. And we're so glad that both of you are here today.
Yeah, that's because both of them are enigmatic, elusive. And as we learned more about each of them and their stories, I think the entire team couldn't really decide whose story they were a little more obsessed with.
So today's theme is inspired by how explicit their journeys have been, both personal and the career and the life choices that they've made.
The unique approach both our speakers have to their art has inspired us to change our format as well today. So rather than us asking questions or them, giving a presentation, we've decided that they'd rather have a conversation between themselves. And as Sid has promised on Instagram, he'll try and be kind to Kshitij throughout the entire conversation if he can.
So after the chat, they'll play the Olliday Jenga. So whoever picks up the blue chit has to answer truthfully.
A red tile means doing it there.
And a neutral means the questions are open to the audience.
So I'm sure this is a format that anybody who's been to Olliday before is familiar with. The idea today really is to kind of have you guys really get to know them a bit better, because we couldn't find anything about them online, especially you. So please feel free to ask questions when the beige tiles are pulled. And if time allows, after Jenga is done, we'll open up the floor to a few more questions from the audience as well. Yeah? So is everybody ready to get started?
I don't need to say much about Kshitij. I think his super daring visuals is a showcase of how Indian stories are being perceived all over the world. And I think what is beautiful about it is the core authenticity that he manages to maintain in everything that he does.
Yeah, and our other guest is a fascinating mix of brains and beats. Sid doesn't really stick to genres, he pretty much dismantles them. And what makes him even cooler is that his day job is as a psychiatrist. So from understanding the human mind to creating beats that stay in your soul, he couldn't care less for convention.
So please welcome Kshitij Kankaria.
And Sid Vashi. Dr. Sid Vashi.
Dr. Sid Vashi.
It's a me to hear out loud.
Hi guys. So I think we are supposed to start with some question and answer. But I like to start with how I met Sid and how this sort of conversation about today came about. I think we know each other from roughly about like
8-9 years.
8-9 years. We randomly met at a friend's house, and he was with his then girlfriend, and I was in a friend's birthday party, and then he just sort of came up to me and said that I think you look cool, we should share wardrobe. And that's what his first sentence to me outside a party or in a club. And then I think we just exchanged number at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I had to go to Banaras for a styling job where I was doing that time. And I was just telling him that, yeah, we're trying to catch up 101 and not like with a lot of people. And we were like, he was just like, I was like, I'm leaving for Banaras. He was like, oh, I always wanted to go to Banaras because I want to record some light sound. And I had an assistant ticket with me. I was like, why don't you just come with me and record sounds and act like my assistant, pack suitcases and fold clothes that anyone can do, right?
It's like the worst assistant in the history of assistants.
Yeah, I think you end up saving life of someone in the model who's fit in the set. So I think he's doctor, whatever, talent came about. That's how we met. And I think since then, it was his 3 years he was in Bombay between Detroit and Australia. And then we became really close friends. And I think since then, a lot of stuff I have done with Dirty, Sid has given a lot of soul to it by putting every sound you hear on Dirty is by Sid. And a lot of other things we've done in the past, whether it's my shows, whether my consultancy, I think a lot of sound and brain has come from Sid in this thing. So there's been a very deep collaboration and deep friendship from last whatever time since we met. And I think that's why when Pollinate calls, we were like, okay, he's in town from Australia on a break, performing at multiple festivals. So it'll be great to have a conversation which is much more personal. And that was the reason I sort of agreed, because I don't like to talk in public in general. So I think it'll be nice,
Neither of us
shitty
do.
conversations. Yeah. So yeah.
So no, now I'll start because we're gonna talk a little bit about sort of how we came to where we are now in some way. But we'll start with kind of the origins because it's something we've talked about, but like honestly, we haven't talked about that much. And we both have that in common. We come from like smaller towns in a way, but at very
Which
different
small
places.
town did you come from?
I grew up in Michigan, like Detroit. I didn't
You
go
know
to
my
Detroit
small
prepper.
town.
I know that's what. So that's what we're gonna talk about. So like first, I guess tell us about growing up in Indore. Like, what was it like for you as a kid?
So I grew up in a very small place called Jhabua, which is like a very, very, very tiny town next to Indore. It's not even Indore. Indore was a dream growing up. I kind of grew up in like a joint family, if you know what that means, of 21 people living together under the same roof, and they still do live under the same roof together. And I think as a child, I didn't know what to make out of it because everything around me was like just everything was shared. I didn't know most of the days who my dad and my mother is because everyone was taking care of me. It just genuinely was the problem. And I was just like, when you're a child, you don't realize it. When you grow up and start becoming a teen, you start looking for your private and personal space. And that's where I start escaping that system. And recently we were discussing, me and Sid, and because he's a psychiatrist, so there's a lot of like burden I give it to him as a person, and that how safe and beautiful the space is when you are sharing a lot and you are just coming from a place of a lot of security and you've always been taken care of in a larger family, which often when I come to Bombay and I talk to my friend here, they all sort of lack and have abandonment issue, or like they didn't have time with their parents, or they were single sibling and they didn't have any sibling, they were single and they didn't have anything to share. And then I recently started appreciating my childhood way more than I ever did before, because there's this certain sort of security and love came, which I can clearly see in my career and my life right now. And I think that is what it has been growing up in a small town, because I just had a very strong foundation as a kid and I had no complaints, which I recently realized.
Yeah.
And
But I guess what's interesting is, I mean, you have now a very fierce sense of individualism, and you talk about, growing up in a joint family where everything's very collective. Do you think those things are related? Like now with you being so, I guess, distinctly you and like not like many other people and the work that you do and everything like that, do you think that that in some way comes from that?
it has to. I might not have a clear answer for this, but it has to, because I think coming from that place, you're always made to believe that you have to be here, do your family business, everyone is here, we always live together. They still do. I'm the only one who stepped out and had a separate life from the family. So I think in a way I was always running. I constantly ran as a child to go to a different school, then go to a different town, then move to a boarding school, then study design, which they had no idea what it is. So I was constantly running. So I think having an individual voice must have come from a place of like just constantly trying to separate myself from a system which I at that point think I didn't belong, or not that I didn't belong, but I didn't want to be a part of, because it was just too it's a part of a box, and we all live in the same box, and I knew that I had to separate from it, and I think that it's kind of become a part of my personality.
Moving on, I guess, related to that, like, what is your parents' sort of sense of what it is that you do? Like, do they have a clear sense of what you do?
No, they don't.
No?
No.
My parents also.
I think the clear sense for them started coming when I started making money. And clear sense of them came when I started to work with famous people and start being a part of the news. It came from a place of like fear, because I think first they saw the controversies, and then they started seeing that, oh, that means something. But I think what was great about my parents, which I realized later in life, was that they had a lot of trust and faith for me to go and do whatever I wanted. And I always kind of kept that trust and not became someone they didn't expect me to become. So they just wanted me happy and successful and make money. That was the basic criteria they had for me. And they let me go and let me be free. And I've gone to places where they had no idea. If I would have fucked up there, they had no way to save me from the situation. So I was kind of responsible always to take that faith and take that freedom and do good with it, instead of trying to spoil myself coming to to the big city, because there are places we all have sort of been young, separated from the family. You all have places where you're like, okay, you can get fully drunk, you can do a lot of drugs, you can just sleep for 3 days and wake up and start doing work again, especially if you're a freelancer in the creative industry. But I have never taken the faith and trust given to me for granted, and I kept on sort of making sure that I should not fail and go back home with a shameful face that, oh, I didn't do well and let's just do what you wanted me to do. Not that they ever pushed me to do anything apart from what I wanted to do. So lately in life I've realized that the strongest foundation I have through my parents was that they'd given me trust and freedom, and I think that was the biggest currency you can get from your parents. And they didn't have money, so that was another thing for me that I had to sustain. There was no way they were paying for me to live in Bombay, so I had to work, and I was working since second year of NIFT to make money to know what I wanted to do. And I think that sort of resilience gave me a lot of power and confidence coming to a big city that I can do it, because I paid my fees in college and stuff. So that was something which is, in hindsight, it was, I wouldn't say it was hard, but it was challenging. It was a lot of learning. I was excited because I was doing what I wanted to do, but at the same time it came from a place of like, they let me do what I wanted to do because I was barely 15, 16-year-old at that time.
The younger siblings, no? They get all that.
I was not the youngest.
You are the younger.
I was the younger in my, but in the last scheme I was not the youngest. But how was that coming from a small town of Detroit was for you? Because I think you lived in a many different places and you had a different life in different places. I remember like you were studying medicines in Detroit, then you took a break, came to Bombay, did like, you asked your parents to be 3 years break and I want to pursue my music thing.
Kind of, like it was, so I grew up in Michigan, not Detroit. Like Detroit is a proper city, it's a really interesting city because it kind of got completely, it just died in a way. After the industrial, all the industry moved out of Detroit, people started moving out of Detroit, and it used to be one of the biggest cities in the world. In the 50s and 60s, it was like a cultural hub on par with New York. Some great music came out of there, Motown, all of that, like huge culture, huge industry. And then over the years, like by the time I lived there, it was a dead city. A lot of crime. It wasn't really a safe place to be, but like everyone moved to the suburbs. So I lived about 30-40 minutes like northwest of Detroit. Like basically if you look on the map, it's like just where the green starts. And it was very, it was a beautiful, really quiet place. But then we would go into the city for cultural stuff, for music shows and things like that. But more or less it was a very quiet, isolated life. I lived with my family and that's it. For a while we lived like in the middle of nowhere, just like on a plot of land. And then we lived in sort of a suburban kind of area. It was, yeah. Looking back at it now, I think about like the amount of contrast there was, like growing up in like initially in a very stark place, and then I lived in like sort of an apartment kind of affordable housing place for a while, and then we lived in a house in a nice neighborhood, and then just the sort of class disparities that you sort of see there, and then that contrasted with Detroit being like a very, again, a dead city, a city that was completely abandoned by everyone. It was an interesting place to be. You got exposed to a lot of like very stark contrast and very concepts about like socioeconomic well-being and all of that at a very early age because you're just cognizant of it. And I guess musically as well was a big influence because there's just such a rich music history there that there's a lot to draw from. Great musicians still per capita in Detroit. The people don't leave Detroit for some reason. But they stay there, and like people I went to school with, a lot of them are professional jazz musicians. Not a lot, but a few of them are, and they're still in the Detroit jazz scene, like trying to build it up. So in some ways it was similar in that it was like kind of small and isolated, but in a lot of ways also it was kind of connected because of its history.
And like living there and then coming to Delhi, Gurgaon, then coming to Bombay, then moving to Australia, there is like, and I think I lived the same life, I chased the same dream, but you had like a very separated, like you were a different, as far as I understand and I know, you were a completely different person each places you moved to. You're concentrated, so your aim was completely different when you moved places. So like, how does that sort of develop you as a musician or as a doctor, either ways? And also how could you separate, compartmentalize so heavily? And now I see it from last few years, and especially I think guys, he just played at Magnetic Fields and I was just like, oh, he's not performed in 7 years, it's his new music. And I was not expecting, I know he's a great musician, But I was not expecting much, because when someone performs after 7 years, and I know he was working really, really hard to study and become a doctor, but when I saw the set, and not just me, there were like 20 of my friends who were there, they were like, the sound and the quality of music just itself, and what they hear was very unique. And I was like, kind of like, when the fuck did you do this? Like, when did you get time to do this? And when I was shocked, and I was in the process, despite of being in the process, I was shocked. How do you excel in both the things so immensely? And so, like, because music is a talent which needs time and attention and a lot of soul, and being a doctor, and I know you just started being a doctor, so you don't have that kind of like freedom and power. You're still working,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what you are, so it's a very hard life than being free. So how do you sort of, there has to be a personality thing where you can exceed in both the things equally and be so good at it.
I think music was always something that I tended to obsess over. Like from a kid, I was obsessed with music, and I was very lucky to have a lot of like opportunities to facilitate that. So in middle school, even, like, we had a great jazz program. We were the best middle school jazz program in the country. Like, we went to like competitions and stuff, and then even in high school it was really well facilitated, just all through the public schooling system. So I was able to like really develop a skill set from a very early age, which then later, when I decided to pursue other things, my interest initially was in neuroscience. I thought I wanted to be a neuroscience researcher until I worked in a lab and realized it was really boring to work in a lab. And I was like, okay, how do I apply these sort of things in a practical way? And I'd been thinking about medical school. I spent some time in Bombay after my undergrad degree, which I did. It was in Boston. And then I was just kind of feeling it out, and it was really interesting to me. And it was wild to like sort of just see, one, the practical application of things that you'd like learning theoretically, but also just to see how like real it is, like when you're helping people, like, and they're learning their lives, their stories, and why whatever is going on with them is sort of relevant, and how you can actually help that. It's a really special thing. I guess going back to like finding the time between the two, I think is just sort of, I could never let music go, really. Like, I kind of wanted to let it go in between. I got really fried out working in music for those 3 years after my undergrad, and I was ready for a change. So I was like, all right, it's time to go be med school. And for 2 years I didn't make any music, really, because I just wasn't into it. It wasn't fun for me to do like a lot of the commercial stuff that I was doing and all of that, even though that's what was making.
But at that time you released an album right before leaving for Australia.
Pretty much just before. It's like, and that too is like, I like the album as an art form. Like, it's a hard thing to do, to make like a set of songs that go well together. And so I've always been interested in like making these like longer projects, and sort of things that have provided me so much comfort in my life has been like great albums that you can sort of just live in and like listen to over and over and over again. And I want to create that kind of a thing for other people, you know, to sort of be exposed to. I think now more than anything, it's something that I can like sort of lean on for joy. Like, even you have a hard day at work or something, you can come back and you can, there's a joy in creation and like in exhibiting mastery that you've built up over years that I think is really good for lack of a better term, for the spirit, you know, to be able to engage in something that you enjoy, and that you can sort of create something and put your name to it that you can live with, and that will live on outside of you, that's bigger than you. And I think that's sort of what keeps me going, and that's why I can make time for it. Also, Australia is just a place where they really value work-life balance, and so when you're at work, you're very much at work, but then when you're not, you're not, and that's a really good thing.
Do you think, like, at some point in your life, like, would you merge music to heal people? Because you're also in psychiatry, which is quite connected to listening to music. We all have come, you know, back from bad state of being or mind by listening to good music, or you change your mood by listening to music, and there's a connect into that. Do you think you ever create tunes to cure the shit like that, like basically to cure?
I mean, not directly, like, you know, there's music therapists and things like that, and that's
no, but
really
like
good.
what I mean is, like, do you consciously go by the feeling when you're creating your album that how that sound will make the listener feel? Like, do you merge, or is a very separate two different practice for you right now?
It's together in a way and separate in a way, in that like my music life is definitely comes secondary to like my professional life. But at the same time, I had this internal conflict about like, after you sort of work in like a service type of field or whatever, and especially like, you know, when you're trying to help people and do that, and you start to question whether any of this is like matters. Yeah, like sometimes it feels like, oh, but like, what am I gonna do, like making music? Like it's a very self-indulgent thing, like it doesn't, it's
Babe,
pretty
why work in
stupid.
fashion?
Yeah. Like it's sometimes it feels, but then I'm really into like art as an act of service, you know. Like there's David Foster Wallace has this like he spoke about how the point of literature is to make people feel less alone, and then you can sort of provide them with that by like putting something into words that's like hard to describe, you know. When you can give words to people for something that feels a bit intangible, that could be a really comforting thing. And so now I think like when you are creating art that makes people feel less alone, or they feel connected to something, or even just gives them a good time, you know, that's a really beautiful thing. I think it's good for the soul, for the spirit. I think it's good for people's mental health to experience joy and connect with things. And in that sense, yeah, I think it is sort of relevant, but I don't think that like I would bring music into my like practice of medicine directly that way. Like it's more just the ethos behind it is sort of the same. Like it's driven by compassion and like wanting to provide. You're laughing because I said compassion.
Driven by compassion. I don't think he
Kshitij
has
doesn't get a lot of my
I
compassion.
don't think he has compassion for sure. I don't know how he's a doctor. It's surprising to me that how he's listening to people and sorting out their problem, because he's got like I don't think you have. I mean, you have compassion, I agree.
You have a very different perspective on me than most of the world does. So
Yeah, well, that is true. I think he does have compassion, but I think it's just like the amount of compassion needed in the patient needed to be a doctor. I don't think I have to still see it. He does it for life, but I
hard for
don't
him
know
to
if I,
believe.
yeah.
I like this question a lot because you talked about the controversy and things before. The first thing, I guess, is what's your approach? Here it's written, what's your approach to provoking with intention? But, you know, you are really good at sort of identifying what people are going to respond to. Like, you know what will work and what doesn't work, which I struggle with. I'm blind to. I live in that silo, but you're switched on to that. How do you sort of think about that? Like, what is your way?
So, you know, I think when people ask me what do I do currently right now, because I'm doing multiple things at the same time, and I think right now from last like few months, I'm comfortable saying that I own a magazine as my first thing, but I was not before that. And I was like, am I a stylist? That's reductive to me. Am I a creative director? I'm not doing it anymore that much. That's not where I make money. I have a magazine, but I don't know if I was going to go. So I was really confused with my identity. But one thing I always knew, I knew what people are lacking and what I can provide, which I can be happy providing. And I think I always had a very good sense of the people's reaction. So I know when I'm creating something which will that make people happy, or they'll make them upset, or they'll make them feel a certain way, which is sadness or excitement and stuff like that. And when you come to when you are in India especially, there's a lot of emotion has been disconnected from art in general. We are we talk about one thing, and if it's sort of capitalized and accepted, then the whole world, the whole country joins the force, and then we all do the same thing repeatedly. Like it's just commercial art, fashion, films, music, all of it. I think if you just take an example from 10 years, I don't think we've seen anything new, and if anything new came about, it flopped or didn't work. And I knew for a fact throughout my career that there is a place for something which I can touch upon, which is slightly different from people, but it's still people have a appetite for that. So when it comes to, what was the question, the controversy you asked for, or
Not necessarily the question, but how do you like sort of identify like this is something that will actually grab people's attention, or this is something that
it's very
people-
easy because
yeah.
nothing really exists. Everything exists in isolation and in a mass. So when something exists successfully, there are 100 people doing the same thing. So for me to do anything extra, I always felt that I always say that I don't say I don't deserve what I have, but I always say there could be many people doing the same thing and they'll get what I have. But I always question why people are not doing it. For example, magazines. I don't think I'm doing a very path-breaking, crazy job with Dirty. just because there are other people who are not doing anything half decent with publications or media company, I just become this person who's doing amazing job. There are people get shocked by really stupid things. You say a fuck word into a public article and people will like, oh my god, they said fuck and it's amazing, it's cool. You get a guy naked, the girls have been naked fucking 100 years. You've seen Indian girls doing item number and being naked, but you do it to a guy and the whole country like start raising their eyebrow and go crazy about you. And I just don't fucking understand that why. I was like, I'm literally playing with people's stupidity sometime, I feel, or just lack of it. I was like, it's so many things to do. And I think my team members are here. I think that it's 2 young kids. And I think my whole team, I was like, there is so much to do in so many areas. And I don't know why no one is touching any of that. I wished the list of to-do things we have in the office, if I can distribute to the rest of the industry and everyone start doing a little bit, will be such an entertaining, fun, educational, cool industry. And just I'm not anymore, I'm just not in fashion anymore. So I could say as a media company as well, there are many things which country wants, young people want, and I think there's a lot to provide. So for me, I'm just dabbling into it, and then I was like, how do I choose between all of this thing? I was like, whatever gives me the most joy, I'm gonna do that. And even now I do a lot of things which is just my personal agenda to do, and it might not attract people or give me the numbers what we are looking for, but I still keep doing it. And sometimes it becomes successful and sometimes it just doesn't, and people talk to me after 3 years remembering the thing which was not successful at that time. That's the thing.
Yeah, but I
you've
think
done.
you're underselling it, because you also have like a clear sense of, one, like attention to detail and being very thorough, but also
You have
like,
to be good at what
yeah.
you're doing. I would do, if I pick up something to do, I would make it the best thing I have done or people have seen. That is for sure. And that the pressure I provide to rest of my team as well, that if you're doing something, if you're putting your hands onto something, it has to be the best thing they have seen. If you're touching Kareena Kapoor, make her look the best she's ever looked. If you're touching anything, you have to make sure that this is the best thing people have seen in that context. So that is just sheerly out of having a great team and having an understanding of what has not been done. So that's there. I think that's given to us, and that has been with me as a person from since I started my career. But picking up topics like that is something which is not rare.
But I also think that that's probably one of the distinguishing things. I do think that, like, it's people like the idea of hard work or like really like getting into the weeds of stuff, but they don't actually want to do it. And I think that like that can be the differentiating factor.
I'll tell you one thing. People have a lot of preconceived notion, especially in India. I think people assume it's going to be a no. People will say bad things. Even now, today, when I'm having discussion with either it's someone who's sponsoring us or someone, there's a lot of no's before there are yeses. And there is yeses to think they've seen before, and there are no's to think they've never seen before or never done before. And for me, when there is yes, everyone is saying yes in the team or around me to do this, I automatically feel there is something wrong with it. So for me to do, that's your question, right?
Yeah.
That is just, it's just.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, I think that there was a lot to be said about not drinking the common Kool-Aid that like everyone else is drinking, and like being aware what everyone else is drinking, if you know what I mean.
And also, I think it comes from the place of like, I never wanted to be, because I was bored of what's going on around me in Bombay 6 years ago. I mean, you are there, we had a chat right now. Shitu is someone who I worked with intensively for commercial jobs in the past. I didn't want to do any of that anymore. I had options to become one of the top creative stylists in the country, or start working with Bollywood star, but I never chose that path. I had an option, I've done it, and I'm still doing a lot of it, but I never wanted to do that. So for me to just break beyond the borders, not for I want to prove a point, but just for myself to learn and do more. I have worked in many other places, in many other countries with other collaborators which are just not in the realm of fashion. Like I work with Sid, who's a musician, I work with directors, I work with artists within the realm of fashion before I even started Dirty. And I think that gave me a lot of opening to see there is a lot more collaboration can be done in the industry and make a work which is not satisfying a need of just a particular small market, but you can reach to different market, and that gives you a very overall perspective of what your work can become by the effect of just attaching different people to it. And now I think Sid has been a collaborator with me, just not on the music, but he's big as a doctor. I started to sort of use him to write philosophy and theory about every dirty issue. So like when we're talking about death, I start involving him and doctors, other doctors, to write the philosophy about death and what do you think about death. And then that article went to every single collaborator as this is the idea of death, dirty things, and then you tell us how do you connect with that and give us your piece of work instead of us telling us get this girl into an outfit and shoot her this way. So we go really deep into it. So I start connecting with him as a doctor as well, and I think a lot of people don't realize that every single thing around art eventually connect to a human mind just like any other form of art. So when you think on surface you think you're doing fashion, but actually you are changing someone's mind. Just same thing is said about music. And I think if you don't touch people's mind and heart, you're very forgettable right now in the current times, because everyone is on the phone. Everything you see a lot of it, whether they're people or work, and nothing will connect to you for long term unless you're hitting their heart and emotions. They'll forget about you. You'll die tomorrow. Your Instagram will stop. You'll stop working. No one will care because you came in front of their eyes for a couple of seconds. They liked it. They moved on from you. But it's very important to go in depth of people's emotions and heart and hit it there, because that's the only way they'll remember you for a long time if you're doing this. And try to think about it. The people you follow on Instagram, if someone has personally touched you, it'll be disappointing if they disappear. But most of the people you're following, they're creating content for you to consume within second and moving on from it. And I think that's why I was talking to people at Pollinate that I don't talk too much, because I don't want to be someone who is just like constantly on people's faces. And my work has become also very, very rare to come out. I stopped styling for my own magazine because I just don't want to be the person who is constantly on your face. Because I don't have things to say every day. I don't have things to say every week. I really don't. So making myself a person that, okay, what do I do now? Can I move my head this way? Can I wear this different outfit? Can I, you know what I'm saying, eat a different food every day to excite people? I don't want to fucking excite people every day because I genuinely can't.
Yeah. I very much relate to that. But like then speaking of collaborators, like how do you then, because you have a very clear sense of what you want to do, how do you sort of bring them into that? How do you convince them to like do things that they might not be comfortable with, or like things that they think, you know, might not work, but you're very sure because you have that good intuition and sense of things. How do you sort of bring them in?
So that's another thing. I work with very small, and I go to the same people again and again and again for work. So like there in India, if you talk about photographer, there are Rid Burman and Bikramjit Bose and Ashish are the only three people I work with in my whole Dirties career. Because, and I know, and it's much more personal and a friend's thing and understanding what they do, because I know I can push them while I'm pushing myself. So whenever they come and do work with me, they're not doing the same work they've done in the past with me or with someone else. So I know sometime, for example, I think Rid is a great example of someone. We're doing a story for Death Issue, which was an expired film, black and white picture with Rutvik and Headgear, and he's not done anything like that before. He was like, that's not what I do. I was like, Rid, you can do it, and you can, the best person for you to do this is you. And I think I spend a lot of, you know that, I ask for a lot of time for people who work with me. It doesn't matter someone is in the office, an external collaborator, whether it's a photographer, even a model, I need to take a lot of time from them to get to where I'm getting finally with my work. It gets difficult for them, but at the same time, they know they're creating something special with the collaboration with the team we have. And I think that's when I realize that everyone is fucking bored just like me. Like everyone is doing the same thing. They don't get to do anything new. They don't get to do anything special. And no one comes to them with a lot of passion. Like when you talk to them, there's one mood board, a Zoom call, next day morning you're on the shoot and you have started to shoot. I was like, how the that was my problem with the industry in India. I was like, how can you just turn up on the shoot and start styling? I need to do 3 days of prep. I need to do every single fitting. I need to do the best possible way or the worst possible thing to eliminate. There's a lot of elimination, selection, changing overnight, seeing it in my night, moving in my mood board. Like there's a lot of that, and how I cannot turn up in the morning and start shooting. And all the photographer, all the stylists are used to that in the country. So when we challenge them, they realize that this is so much fun. And when they see the work coming out of that process, they realize that we are worth something. Because I don't know how many of you are in fashion or in creative industry or freelance industry right now. People don't take it seriously. You don't take it seriously because client don't take it seriously. You don't take it seriously because the photographer don't take it seriously. So you go on set and everyone is like, let's finish it off, take your check and go home, is the attitude, which is like, I don't want to fucking live this like when I'm 25 years old. It's okay to live like that when I'm like you know, I'm retiring and I only need a check, but where do I learn from and how do I get excited about things when no one around me is exciting? And there's a clear hierarchy in the system. So when you are on the lower hierarchy as a stylist, you feel really discouraged. And I have studied, I have fought my whole life. I have studied really hard in NIFT and NID to get to where I've got. I was like, I don't want to fucking be disinterested every morning and just finish the job and come home with the money. This is not what I've studied my whole life and fought with my family to get here. So it's just a fight, and I think whoever we are working with are equally excited about the work we do and dirty, because everyone's like, there's nothing like this exists. We all want to work for it because we create our best work when we come to this place. And which is, I would happily say that this is the truth, that I think we do create something that every collaborator is very proud of coming with us and creating something very beautiful, whether it's an image, piece of music, piece of writing, because A, we give them time, and B, we give them extreme amount of freedom. So if you don't fit for it, don't do it. I'm not going to push you to do something what you want to do. You read it, you connect with it. If you connect with it, do whatever you want to do, is what the general attitude at the team is. And I think I wanted to ask, like, you also the same thing, that when you are sort of, there's always boxes in the industry of music as well. And I think whenever I'm talking about you to friends, because you're often not here, is the genre situation, which is also another thing which put people in boxes. And I know he's recently interviewed one of my all-time favorite band Mount Kimby last week. It came out, and I think the biggest question, which was the biggest thing which was common between him and Mount Kimby, that do not believe in genre at all. So I want to ask you about why.
Oh man, I mean, where do I start?
Don't go too long, because I know you will carry this question for a long time.
Look, I think, genre is only useful as like an informative kind of tool. Like if you use it to convey some kind of information, there are certain genres that have a tradition that come along with it, right? There's a style of making music, or it came from a certain place, or because there were these types of instruments available to them, they made this kind of music. And they have certain distinct features that can be helpful when you're communicating. But like, I only want to hear about genre from other musicians. So if I'm talking to another musician, they're like, oh yeah, we did this song and it's got like, you know, a bit of like a hip hop sort of beat structure, but also like, you know, a bit of like a reggae guitar thing. And also like, you know, the vocals come kind of from like whatever, some other like jazzy place or whatever. Then okay, I know what they're talking about. It helps to sort of facilitate the conversation. I can sort of imagine what they're talking about in the mind. But I think when genre gets put into the larger conversation about music, it's also, people use it as a way of like, I guess, defining personal identity, which I don't agree with. It's like, oh, I like this style of music, so I don't like this style of music. Or like, I think it closes people's it closes the amount of doors available.
Are you talking about listeners or people who are making music?
Listeners, I think, or like people who are engaged in conversations about music. I think it can be a very limiting thing when you start to think about genre, and then you start to only seek out things that are, you know, also defined in the genre that you sort of already listened to or that you've been exposed to, and then you get exposed to a new genre maybe in a different context. It's all like you bring in a kind of preconceived notion, and I think when you're bringing any kind of preconceived notion to an experience, whether it's art or just generally in life, you're up for a bit of disappointment, because it's not, you know, either it doesn't match up to what you had in your head, or there's some kind of idea that you sort of expect it to be and it's not that. Maybe it surprises you or maybe it disappoints you, I don't know. But I think when people ask me what genre my music is, I mean, I'm a lover of a lot of different genres of music, and I honestly, I think there's like 5 genres. Like, I don't think that there are things beyond that. But within those, I mean, outside of using them as a descriptive tool, I think it's very limiting for me also to think about sitting down and, okay, I'm going to make this genre of music or that or whatever. Like, ethos-wise, if you think about the way I make music, probably comes a lot more from like hip-hop and disco and like rock music than it does come from electronic music. Does it start from
a place? Like, does it start when you start a music or an album? How do you start? Like, is it a genre you pick up, or sound you pick up, or you have an idea, jot it down first, and then you move on to it later? Like, what's the process of starting it all?
It's changed over the years, because before it was a lot of like accidental stuff that happened to sound good, and it was like, oh, this is sounding good, let me like try not to fuck it up. But once you have a little bit more command over your medium, you can create with intention, which then can also be paralyzing because it's like, what do I make? So then you have to like kind of create situations for yourself to be surprised, or situations for yourself to like really latch onto. So sometimes it'll just be like a really good sound. Like, I want to use this sound. I like the way it sounds. So I'm going to build something around that sound. Or sometimes it's like, that's a sample. I love that sample. I want to sample that thing. Or sometimes it's like a chord progression. Sometimes it's just sitting at the piano, you have chords and melody, and you're like, this is
So it's much more intuitive than
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, and then sometimes you have to create situations for yourself to like come up with things that you wouldn't. So I have like a loop station. I have like a bunch of like toys basically that like help me make random things. So you can like record something, loop it, and then like just distort it or mess with it and like do a bunch of stuff like through all kinds of stuff, and you'll come up with stuff that you wouldn't think of, you know, writing down or like, you know, composing yourself, but it just happens because of all the kind of manipulation that you do. You come up with something that then you're like, oh, this is something I can roll with.
Do you think this is happening because that's not your first job or first priority in life? To, I mean, it is, you're a great musician, but like you have a life which is completely dedicated to medicine, and that kind of freedom you have with music because you don't have a record label bothering you, or you don't have to release an album every whatever time. You don't have to make your money through music. I think that freedom of doing whatever you want comes from that, or this is just your process?
I think it's always been my process, but now I feel way more free in that I have no financial need to make music. Like, I don't need to like make things that people will buy, or I don't need to like, I mean, I just so much now. I think the end game in music for people is to like get famous enough to sell shit to people, and like that's doesn't really appeal to me. I think that's the most freeing thing, is just not having to rely on it to live. And so you can do things that actually you believe in, or that are actually fun to make.
I think that's the boring part we I think kind of got over with, which is more philosophical and deep. I've been feeling sick, so I had a drink. So I think that's like I have more fun stuff.
Your project in the way that it's something that has come entirely from you in a way, and also it's a very specific medium, a magazine, in an era where like print media is dying, I don't know. But why the magazine? Why not any other kind of thing? You know, why not get into other mediums or whatever? Why did you want to make a magazine?
So it was purely an accident, guys, and I think just like everything else in my life, I go by, if something's I see in front of me and I feel like there's no harm, I'll do it. In a way, it has always been very planned, but there's this disruptive thing happen, and I never believed in intuitions or like luck and stuff like that. But since Dirty started, I started believing in it quite a lot, and I think it's just really showing me a very different side of how I see my work and how I sort of take actions and take decisions within work. I think I did a book. It's a story. I think I've done a book in 2019, the Paris publication, and
Band Sentimental.
Yeah. And it just randomly came to me. Someone saw my work on Instagram. They commissioned me to do a book, and I was like, okay, 7 days of my time, great money, blah blah blah. Louis Vuitton Foundation, let's do it. For your information, I have never, not for a single day, I have worked in any magazine or assisted anyone. So my experience to not just to work inside a magazine, forget about creating a magazine, which is like a whole business part of it, the media part of it, digital, handling people, numbers, selling, blah blah blah, printing, all of this I have learned on the job. Literally in last 3 years I have learned so much by learning, and I don't even call it a magazine. It's a fucking media company. When you get into it, you're like, oh wait a second, the world has completely changed. I was in lockdown and I realized a mental issue I had, which is like I can't sit still. I've never sat still. So when lockdown happened, I'm just like, fucking hell, like I have nothing to do. There is no jobs. There is no one is calling, all my friends are free, and I just don't know what to do. 1 month I was like, okay, let's start cooking. We all had those little interests we gotten into, and I was like, this is not my thing, and I want to do something. And I remember the publisher called me from Paris one day, and they were like, there's a lack of Indian magazine, and why don't you start interviewing for other magazine or start your own? And I'm just like, you've lost your mind, like everyone is dying, like how do you survive this? And I start calling, I was like, okay, let me just mull over the idea. And I started calling my photographer friend who also had no jobs to do, my writer friend who are also not writing about anything. I was like, everyone is sitting free. They'll give me the most of amount of their time. Let's create this one thing and then call it a book and move on from it. We did one issue of Dirty. It became immensely successful. Like, I think the shoot up we had, we were selling in 33 countries, including Louvre Museum, Palais de Tokyo, like really big places who I would not even dream to like even think my any sort of presence in my lifetime. We were selling it all of this place and we sold out very, very quickly. And people started to ask, my distributor was like, where's the second issue? It's a magazine, you're calling it, where's it? And I was like, fuck, we have to work on the second issue. And it was self-funded from my own money, still is, with my own money. I used to work around as a stylist or whatever and then put that money back into the magazine. So I'd written the second issue. Second issue, I was like, that's it, I'm not going to do a third one because I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know, I still don't have a financial business revenue team within the company. We are just whipping it out of our asses and doing it and becoming good at it. I think it's just, we are learning as we go. And the third issue was an accident because one of my favorite photographers in the whole world, Sarah Moon, we met and she agreed to do a cover. I was like, if she's saying yes to do a cover, I have to do a third issue. And then the third issue became successful, and I think that's how it kept moving. So, and the biggest thing was that while I was doing it, I really had a purpose to something. I didn't feel like I'm like one of the stylists in the country or I'm not one of the creative director in the world. It just felt like this is, I'm really creating something solid. There is a need for it. People are hungry for it. And if I give it enough time and enough attention and give it enough sort of, grace in terms of there are many things which is missing in the industry. So I start noticing what exactly is missing in a larger area in terms of media and entertainment and how I can serve that. And that is the Bollywood came about, entertainment came about, picking up just so I felt like there's many things I can do with it and I'm really having fun while doing it. So I just kept doing it and I think it's still a lot of fun, honestly speaking. Like I just feel like out of everything I've ever done, though it's the hardest thing, I have days which are 17-hour long, I'm traveling non-stop. But within that, if someone asks me to stop, I'll not be able to because it's just a lot of fun. And I think that's why everyone I work with, I make sure that they are not also feeling jaded, tired. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of freedom when you work with me and us. There's hard work, but there's also you need to be happy while you're doing it. If you're upset by doing what you're doing, I think it's not a right place for you and it's not a right place for us. But I think it's just something which is super fun, and there's a deep need of something like a good media company, a great magazine, people who are learning from it and not constantly fed information which they don't really need anymore. Like how is it different from Instagram? How is it different from what people trying to sell you think? And as I said in the beginning, that I think there is a need for way more than just one publication, and I think there is money to be made, there are things to be said, there are walls to be broken, there are ceiling to be hit, and I think we are trying our best to reach those places while having fun and keep ourselves out of controversy, hopefully.
What is your advice for people who also want to, start a business out of passion, out of their passion?
I mean, is that fucking cliche things I'll say, because I think for me at least, it's a personal thing. I'll only give advice of what I've lived through, is that if you're not having fun, you're not going to be successful at things and you're not going to work hard for it. And if you work hard for something you're not having fun at, you're going to eventually get tired, lose interest in it and start working for money, because that's constantly keeps growing, but you don't keep becoming more and more happier while working. It just doesn't happen. So then if something is constantly exciting you, use your time and invest your money and invest your expertise and talent into making money. But in the beginning only you're saying that it's not making me happy but it's making me money, just please stop it, because I think you'll regret every second of while you're doing it, and you'll regret it when you grow old, that I've made all of this money but I've never done what I wanted to, or never been happy with it. I've been very, very lucky to find these things after 10 years of working in different industry, to find something which is successful and keeping me happy. And I think that's the only advice I'll give. Find something and take your time finding it. You're never too old if you're working in creative industry. Sometimes we take a lot of we get really comfortable in the industry as freelancer, and you just have to, always compare yourself with a friend who's working 9 to 5. You'll always feel you're on a better place as a creative person. And then you have to put yourself and work as hard as they are, and you'll automatically feel more successful and productive, because we just get very lazy as freelancers.
That's very true. I also think there's a lot of that, like the Peter Pan kind of thing, like magic doesn't exist unless like people collectively believe in it, you know? And so getting people around to actually believe in the thing that you find fun and interesting and engaging like is also like half the task of getting it there, right? Like I think about like all the people I get to work with, like my band is incredible. They're all like Rohan, Rajadaksha, Viraj Saxena, they're both like part of Salvage Audio Collective. They won Filmfare Award for doing the Gully Boy soundtrack. Like Ajay Jayanti, he's a composer. Like I have the same engineer I've used for the last however many years, but like I feel like they all kind of, they're into the music, they have fun, they get to express themselves.
Because the escape from them, I'm pretty sure it's not really fun to work with in Bollywood.
Yeah, that's it though. It's like it's a passion thing, and I think if you're passionate and you can bring people in and they can also have a part of it, like you get talented people together, they're gonna make something cool, you know.
I think we need to play Jenga now.
We now move into the unpredictable. We have created our own color-coded Jenga. Red is for dare, blue is for the truth, and white is for general questions. Like a regular game, both will take turns to pull a tile and place it on the top. Whichever color tile they pull, they will have to take a chit of the same color. The game ends when the tower collapses, but a collapse in the first 10 is not counted. So it's time to see which our guests fear more, the truth or the dare. The table is set, the players are almost ready. Let's see what happens.
You want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. I'll pick one. Which one is it? Shall I go? Yeah, okay. This is a neutral one, right? So does anyone have a question?
Talked earlier about like how important like albums are as an art form.
Yeah.
And time. So for you, like what album you go back to on a bad day?
Oh man. So many. I think recently I've been actually really getting into Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon, like which like is like my dad's like record, you know what I mean? It's not something that's like I grew up thing, but like it's such an incredible record, not just because of the way it sounds, like it's a feat of engineering, just of how big and beautiful it sounds, but also it's a beautiful concept. It's pretty mundane. It's just about like a day in the life, you know, and all the things that people have to deal with. And I think with the record I'm working on right now, it's very much in the same vein of that. So my record is called Nothing Happens When You Die, and I've been working on it for like 5 years now, like for a long time. And it's not necessarily just about death. I mean, I think all art is about like three things. I think it's either about love, death, or God. And I think, yeah, it's about those things. But I've been, for some reason, listening to a lot of Pink Floyd. But other records, I like Blonde, Frank Ocean is a really good one, especially like how eclectic it is. J Electronica, A Written Testimony, Things Fall Apart by The Roots. Dave Douglas, Charms of the Night Sky is like one of the most beautiful records ever recorded. No, not so much. The really good looking guy who died. Jeff Buckley, yeah, Grace. I think it's really nice, but it's not like I wouldn't put that in my sort of in the pantheon.
What's truth and what's there?
Blue is truth, red is dead.
Go red.
I'm scared
Be careful, huh? It can topple over, then you lose.
Yeah.
No, I have to find one for you.
It's stupid, I'm not gonna.
No, you have to do it. If you had to rename yourself based on your creative style, what would your new name be?
Dirty.
Dirty.
I already did it.
Dirty Kshitij.
You go now.
Oh, me? You know, I made those.
You have to pick up
Oh,
separate
I have to do it.
And you're telling stories, you have to quickly.
It's gonna topple.
I'll come back to your question. I remember that your question.
I'm gonna cheat a bit. This is very precarious. truth.
How do you deal with backlash? Have you ever had to apologize for something you published? It's kind of my question. Okay, yeah.
I don't think anyone cares about it enough about my music to actually have any backlash.
Something someone hated, you got a comment saying it's a shit song and I don't like it.
No, but my manager's mom saw like the album covers that we've been trying out that says like straight ahead, like nothing happens when you die, and she got really upset. She got like really upset like with the thing, and I wonder like if that's something that actually upsets people. I mean, it comes from a lot of different places of it, like one being a thing that's sort of accepted as true within certain like philosophy circles or like philosophy of mind and things like that, but also like as a sort of premise for like philosophical movements that are like
people are just not comfortable with word death.
Yeah,
I realize that. Yeah,
people aren't comfortable with finality of it, or like the fact that they will die and that potentially there's just nothing after that. So I'm hoping people don't take too much offense to that, or don't like take it too literally, or just, you know, everyone is very creative in finding ways to be offended.
It's a bad omen to. That's what my someone in my family told me when I did that death issue. Why are you doing an issue around death? It's auspicious. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not like lucky to talk about death.
People are afraid to talk about death, sex, and money and God. Like, they don't want to talk about it.
They are not afraid to talk about God. They are not afraid to talk about
sex, death,
money.
Money and God.
So that's what we have to talk about.
Yeah,
basically.
so
that's
it's
what
like
we've been talking about.
those are the things that people don't like talking about. And I think those are the things that are essential to confront, to actually like, you know, deal with your life and deal with being alive, because it is quite like pointless to be alive. So like, you have to sort of reconcile the futility of it.
I like being alive. I don't mind dying, but it's fine. I'm not gonna pull. I'm just gonna ask you to ask me a question.
No, you have to pull. Pull this one.
What's the point?
Pull it. Yeah, you have to go on top.
Yeah. Well, you say you have a list of, you know.
How much time do you have?
Go off, bro.
I wanna start a product line. I wanna get into talk about beauty. I wanna start making films as a format. I also wanna do a lot of work around education. There's a lot of topics within entertainment industry in India, and I have a huge list of collaborators I wanna work with. And I think luckily we are moving really fast. So a lot of things which is in my list are already getting fulfilled in next year and half year. But there is a lot of things I still want to do, and they're all connected with each other. So there is a lot of exciting things which. Those things are what I wish to do in like 20 years of my life. But like immediately right away, there's a lot of topics I want to touch with Dirty, and there's a lot of collaborator I want to work with, and I want to find a way to work with a print format which has not been done before. And I don't mean take a fabric and make a cover out of it, but like slightly more engaging and slightly more radical. It's not as much as visual design. It is like emotional hit, that unexpected thing out of a publication or a media company. We're still having discussion on how to, because there's still so much of like usual thing which has not been done, which we want to do. There's a lot of things in magazine which has not been done before ever, and I think just first reach those places and just get to that place. And once we do that, then I think I want to do other areas which is connected to my area, to seep into them and try to shift and change them. And let's see what happens. But yeah, we are committed to doing it. Yeah. Huh? What do you do?
And I feel like right now I'm doing a yesterday stuff, so just be such a big yeah. And I saw it. You know, but you should pay pirate prices. Very grey, very dry, very boring. I want to change it.
You know, one of our cultural writers still works in an NGO, Sanjana. She's heavily working with, and she's part-timing. I'm trying to pull her to do good work, to do bad work from NGO to come into a fucking heavily capitalism media company. But like, there is a way. I think once we finish this, we can chat about it. I'm 33. Yeah, go.
No. Red.
Red is there. Red is there, right?
This thing will topple.
Just pick.
I'll do this one.
I can just Shasang.
You can't. That's the whole game. Okay. Pick one.
If you had to delete a piece of work from your career, which one would it be and why?
I already deleted it. My first album was, well, I guess it wasn't an album, but did a project called Motherland Tourism when I was still in college, and it was about identity. Like, I lived in India and I just went back to the States, and I felt like kind of like not like an ABCD who like never lived in India, but also like I didn't feel like, you know, like a fully like Indian. I couldn't own any identity, and so that whole project was like using Bollywood sounds and then using other things to construct songs that were there. But it was also really badly done. Like, I just wasn't good. Like, I was still like sort of exploring electronic music. So it got posted about in like Wild City, the blog, after Soupy sent it to them, a friend of ours. And then, you know, I'd started, you know, getting offers to do shows when I came back and things like that, and that's sort of how everything picked up. But then I removed the album because I just wasn't happy with it, and I didn't feel like it represented what I could do or what I wanted to do. So I took it down. There's like physical copies floating around somewhere. There's a shop in town called Bombay Electric. They asked me for like a bunch of CDs, and then it was like, long time ago. Yeah. And then like, so I think there's copies that exist somewhere, but other than that, it doesn't exist. I deleted it.
Should I do truth, dare, or public? Like, you guys want to ask questions? Dare is red, right? Okay. Dare is kind of like truth.
Yeah, the dares are not very. I thought you were gonna get him to dance and stuff.
This is the wrong one to pick.
No, do it.
No, it'll fall. Yeah.
So I mean, try this one.
Why can't I just pick up? Why do I have to?
Just do it. Chal na.
I can pick up this one, right? Okay, I can pick up this one. See.
You really can't.
And I can put it back.
We're doing it there anyway. I'll pick a good one.
I'll not do it if it's weird.
Okay. Pretend you're being interviewed by a panel of angry critics who just hated your work. Defend your choice as if it were a masterpiece.
Been there, done that.
So do it. I'm telling you, dirty is just shit, dude. It's pointless, garbage, trite.
You know,
absolutely.
I instead of answering, I'll tell you what happened, and I'll tell you there was. I don't know whether you guys you know who Santu Mishra and Aishwarya Subramaniam is. So they are my really good friend, and they were running in lockdown this Clubhouse conversations on Clubhouse. Like thousands of people were joining them, and there was this one girl. Her name is Komal. I'm gonna fucking name people at this point. She's a beauty writer, a beauty blogger, and she's worked with magazines before. And then Dirty has just come out, like literally just come out. I had no idea what I was doing. And people had that assumption that I'm trying to take my country forward, which is not my agenda, not my place, not my intentions. Don't care. She just thought that, and the first cover we did was like a Gucci sponsored cover where there were two guys was like hugging each other and sitting on the chair, and she just went at me at 2 o'clock in the morning about how I'm working with white photographers and white people, and like just that rant of this typical rant of people, whatever. And then 8-9 people joined into that conversation, and I was defeated. Because I was like, maybe they are right. They worked in the magazine for 10 years, maybe. And I remember that line that you have all the formula to shut a magazine down was her lines. And I'm just like, okay. But now I think I would, No, she keeps commenting under a post very stupidly things like that. Every time we do something controversial, she's the first one to write like 8 line. But people go behind. I don't even have to fight my fights anymore. That's the fun part. There are people who are fighting for me. So I think I don't have to. And I'm not someone who again go to a public platform and do this conversation about things. But if that happens to me right now, I would not defend myself. I'll probably argue and win.
But what do you think about that? Because like I feel like there's a lot of talent in India, and like when I can, I want to work with like an Indian artist. You know what I mean? Like very very like, I would rather almost always work with an Indian artist than like a foreign, a white artist or whoever, like, because it's one, because there is so much talent here, but two, it also just feels more true to like the place where the stuff is being made, or the place that is it's being performed and received. And also like, again, they're such great people here.
So I have a larger. I know what you're talking. Why do you not work with them? Is what
No,
the
not
question is.
necessarily, but like, do you think that it's valid to like seek that out, or is that something you think about? Because I mean, Dirty in many ways was an Indian magazine.
See, there is Indian topic being picked up versus Indian people working for the magazine. There are two different things. So we always pick up something which is needs attention in the country, and people are not paying attention to it. Maybe medium wise, we work with people who might not be ethnically Indian, but at the same time, there's always a balance of Indian collaborator. I would not say essentially photographers,
Yeah.
but whether the people we are shooting, people who are writing, people who are involved into the process, my whole team. Second thing, and it could be a bit, it's something I'm saying which could be a bit like, oh, controversial in a way, is that I told this to everyone who's close to me, that if I stop having fun with Dirty, and if all my wish list has been ticked out, I might shut it down. And I think the advantage what consumers are getting out of Dirty is like a very free flowing platform where I don't care about a brand coming to me and telling me what to do, and I just do it because I want to do it. And that's the same thing with contributors. I want to work with
Yeah.
people who I want to work with,
Yeah.
and I don't see them as far as, see, I'm not a flag bearer of the country. Sometimes people forget that we are not a corporate. People compare us with like other publication where this huge corporate exists from 100 years, have like a huge thing. It's like a little office in the house and I'm working on my own. It's not like a corporate. So when people compare us with giant publication and think that you have responsibility, I don't have a fucking responsibility.
Yeah.
All my responsibility is just towards myself. I don't care. So I think that's why people get really offended, and I think it always comes from a place of their insecurity rather than what they see. Because in reality, if you really look into it, 90% of a collaborator always and forever has been Indian. I will not even say Indian
Yeah.
origin. They are Indian. So if you pick up the magazine, flip through the pages and see all the collaborators, they are all Indian, or they're pretty much all Indian.
There's also, I think, like the white gaze or the NRI gaze, or the way to like look at India. There's some things that because you grow up in this environment, you become habituated to it, and so you don't see how like genuinely beautiful or just genuinely crazy things are because things.
It's not that. It's like a much more micro conversation, because when you look at people's work, there is a very Dirty is releasing a article within few days, is that we've been, as I started the conversation, that people find a formula and the whole industry run behind it. So if I have to find a photographer to work with who's not doing a nostalgic related images, I can't find a single fucking fashion photographer who's not doing sari girls, Havelis. Like I was like, where do I find modern work? And there'll be like 5 people who are doing those work. And when you meet them, there is immense amount of vision, but there's technical knowledge which is lacking. So they have to do a lot of it. So for us to do perfect work, which is like sort of hitting the emotion, hitting technicality, coming from a place of maturity and talent and understanding of the topic of some sort, there are very few people who comes from all of those places. And I have a fear of working with someone I have not worked with in the past couple of times. So when I have to work with someone new, it has to take a lot from me, which I'm ready to give once in a while, to like pick up few people and say that, hey, let's just sit together, talk, do come some test shoot and get to a place where we can create something amazing. But as I said, I think putting responsibility and pressure onto people put you also into a box. So if people saying that you have responsibility, then I'll automatically run into a place where I feel safe and create safe work, which I don't want to create. Does it make sense, guys?
Yeah. It's your turn today.
Read the dare.
That was you. Okay. I should get into it, but this is not a crowd of music people. They're not interested, it seems.
Just pick up the top one. You went for the hard one, huh? From the bottom.
Yeah. Questions? See?
No one listen. Yeah.
You have a lot of artists who are disconnecting themselves from female platforms. Like, people like it. Because you have that internal dialogue with yourself, limiting your head for a particular area.
No, because I don't understand why you would want to make it harder for people to listen to your music. Like, like I get it. Like, people are putting things on, like James Blake's doing that thing on the Vault, and like there's other people who are like, being, oh, I'm only going to release. One of my favorite albums is The Ecstatic by Mos Def, which he famously hasn't put on Spotify or anything because he's totally against the whole capitalist machine. And I relate to that, but at the same time, it's like, I've made this thing. I don't want to put barriers into people being able to listen to it. Like, it should be accessible. It should be like, it should be an easy way to get it. I disagree with how Spotify operates. They don't pay people enough, yet they make a bunch of profit. But like, people don't make shit from royalties and streaming anymore. Like, it's complete pointless. Some of the streaming services are a little better about it. That definitely needs to get better. But at the same time, I wouldn't at this point, especially, I mean, like, I'm not a big artist. So, like, I wouldn't, like, try and eschew that system to, make a kind of point when nobody will care. You know what I'm saying? But if I was, like, if I was, like, Jay-Z, or if I was, like, like, Doja Cat or something, then, like, maybe I would think about doing that, because you would actually have people who would want to, put their time, effort, and money into seek your things and all.
And all of that. A lot of artists they just usually read like that.
Yeah.
But then they already do the concept that hey, I usually retrieve to that up very what with she.
Yeah.
Then they do around about something about the fire releasing in the boy fire up and the 50.
Again, I speak from a place of privilege because I don't need to make money from music. So, like, I don't care how much money comes from it, I think if you are trying to make a living of it, it's a very real thing. And like, yeah, the industry is fucked. Like, it's really hard to make a buck making songs or writing songs unless you go into the Bollywood machine, or you do other things that generally make, I'm not saying it's bad music, because if people enjoy it, it's good music. It's good art if it just engages people. But there is such thing as lazy music, and there's a lot of lazy music happening. And that's generally what pays too. So it's like, if you tell Spot to be in it, I really feel you can make music.
But I think it's a question on Europe can answer. Hani.
Sure.
So you follow.
What do you do?
I started TikTok and TikTok. I'm scaling volume and unnecessary mostly people. So is that she creates a the storytelling in university. It is very simple, and I come up with muscle engagement. It's not easy. Already that no. And is the dress how you got for your size? How do you stay away and party as a dick?
How old are you? Shut up. When I had this confusion, I had done everything there is to do in my career. I had done big campaigns, I have done big style Bollywood films, I've done fashion magazine editorials, I've done covers of all of this, and then I knew I'm bored of it. I genuinely knew I'm bored of it. I understand, but consuming data is very different from working as a professional in the same industry. Creating data and consuming data is a very, very, very different thing. So when you are consuming, you don't really know what goes behind it. But when you're actually doing it, you will know. Sometime, like, I hated some part of styling and I loved some part of it. Like, I loved selecting clothes, making mood, but I hated dealing with people. Yeah, I loved sourcing, but I hate just dealing with people. So that's what I'm saying. Then you find out, okay, you hate sourcing. So what is other part of it which you love? I love interacting with people. Then it'll take you to another place automatically. In fashion, what does it work so you can get into PR?
But it's also my question media, right? If I'm trying to do something but not for any case, if me, and I'm not given that freedom when I want to work with it, how do creators like me with it?
I again repeat
Get your
the same.
money. No, like, honestly.
No, I didn't have money. It's
No,
just that
but-
it's something. I understand what she's
Yeah.
saying, and I think we all had this question growing up in the creative, especially in fashion, because luckily I had a better world than her right now. Because right now fashion is fucking doomed. Like, just particularly fashion, there's nothing. I feel very bad for young people in fashion because there's no magazine, there's no people you want to. Like, there are times I've hired like people in my styling team, and I would ask questions like, so what do you ultimately want to get? And their answer will be like really reductive, like, I want to style Deepika Padukone. I'm like, that's your goal? Like, to you study for 6 years to go do that? You can do it in 2 years. Like, then what after that? I think you really need to try everything and go through the hardship for 5 years and 6 years and understand what all it takes, and automatically while you're doing this you'll understand what you meant to do. And before doing experimenting and path breaking thing, you need to do things which are conventional. It just gives you a skill set.
And you just give me the article about it.
That is something I didn't learn, I think that just happened to me, and I realized is looking back that I was constantly running. I didn't know that I was running. I just, something in my mind, I don't even know how to articulate it or go back to that feeling. I just knew that this is not enough, and I still feel what I'm doing right now is not enough. That's why I said to her, I want to make film, I want to do this, that, the other, because I just knew that I had to keep doing. It doesn't mean I will not do what I want to do right now. Maybe this is not the thing for my future. It doesn't mean I'll stop doing it right away. I'll still do it. I'll still do it well, and I'll still do it the best there is to be done, and then I'll move on to the next thing. Because whatever I'm doing right now is giving me some sort of talent and set of like tools that will make me better. And you know why in all this conversation we forget people? The people you meet on the way becomes your really, really hardcore collaborator when you're struggling and doing something which you're not really happy with. Trust me, the photographer I work with, imagine Sid, I work, like all the people I have sort of worked with when I was not super happy are the people who I'm still working with, and we are all finding a way out of those places. If you try to find it alone, industry is not going to provide you. First of all, there is nothing exists out of the box. There are very rare places you can go. You have to create your own. Biggest thing with Dirty was that, it's not I joined Dirty. I created Dirty because there was no platform for me to talk what I wanted to talk about. I was like, I'm going to do it on my own way. So that completely sort of shifted. And I was ready to work really hard for it because I just wanted to fucking use my education, my life to create something. I was not ready to submit to such shitty vision of someone else and do what they wanted me to
But
do.
also, you wouldn't have been able to do that 7-8 years ago. It's only after,
No
yeah,
way.
exactly.
No way I would have been able to do. I had to do all of this to be selective in terms of, you'll not even know. If you jump, if I give you something that this is the place, and you'll be like, yes, I'm very happy with this thing, you'll not be happy with this in 2 years. This is just the age thing. Doesn't matter what you do right now. After 5 years or 7 years being a creative in the creative industry, you're not gonna be happy with it. Just accept it. In 5 years,
No,
you'll
but
be a
also-
different person. 7 years, you'll be. I'm just talking
Yeah,
about myself,
I
not
know.
everyone.
But I guess my question for you then is, like, what do you think is getting in the way of making things that you like right now, or that you're proud of, or that you want to be a part of? In terms of audience or collaborators? Collaborators. That comes with time. You meet people like over time, right? You're still in school, so you have like a pool right now of people you have access to. You work more, you'll have an access to a wider pool of people.
Like the 5 people I worked with in the beginning of my career, I'm still working with the same people. They have grown with me, I've grown with them. So you just have to, if you have friends in the college who are your age and they are also not happy, you are working in, you said styling right now, and you're an art director. Find another student who loves styling, find another student who loves photography, and just grow together. I think this is what I have done.
Yeah.
And if you're confident, just start from small. You got the platform you guys have is insane. We didn't have those platforms. We had Instagram had just started when I was just like in my midway college, in my college. We didn't even know how it works.
Yeah, and back then it was like a camera filter more than it was a platform.
It was a camera filter, literally. It was not a platform for anything.
Oh, that's funny.
I used to answer you and also help you summarize for you, and just because I felt it somewhere. Because when you say something, you know that you have a vision. You need the skill set and tools to bring into life. 5 years ago, you probably had something, and 5 years later, 100%. you can tell that whatever you learned 5 years, it's just helping you. And just because every day you're moving closer to that thing coming more real, like, because imagination has no limit, right? And when you bring it to reality, it's like, fuck, sorry. But that's the
Yeah, he's completely right. I'll not be able to execute my idea if I didn't have the skill set from last 5 years. There's no way. I didn't know. Like right now, if you put an idea, I know exactly how to make it work. Whether it's skill set, my team, and the collaborators I can get on board, but just by a phone call, or the money I have to produce something, I wouldn't have. So even if you have a dream and you're trying to create it, it'll be very mediocre. And I'm not saying you're not talented. I'm not saying that at all. It's just something comes with time and working and understanding how things works. It's just practice makes you perfect. And I think it's just one of those things you have to keep improving yourself. And you're lucky in a way that because you have a lot of time, and I think a lot of people are having the same struggle. So you can start a movement by collecting those people and working towards something. And I hope anyone who's younger here, please try to create a sub industry on the side, because it's a really sad world if you just keep going the way we are going in fashion and art in the industry. I always have this complaint, there is immense amount of money flowing in Indian industry. In fashion, we are really misusing industry to create shit aesthetic and using that money to really create a dumb place for all of us to be. There is nowhere else the kind of money is flowing into Indian luxury and fashion right now, and we are completely misusing it by creating terrible aesthetics. And there are not many people who are doing good stuff. So you guys have to really like steer away from the situations and use your talent to not get engaged into what's going on, but create a sub industry or like a movement which can create something fresher and nicer. And you have the platform, you can look at corner of the world and understand and learn from them. You can collaborate with anywhere in the world. You can collect people around them to create something new and fresh, because if you're waiting for this industries to change, it's only going down south. So you really have to be careful
Also,
about
like,
it.
technology is now very like democratizing everything. I mean, what would stop a person from getting like 5 friends together and just shooting some incredible images? You know what I mean? Or like making something really good just because you have other people who are interested or into the same kind of stuff you are. You can just get together and do something. Cameras are everywhere. Like it's much easier now than it was 10 years ago to like just make shit.
Like, it's not good, keep doing shit work. No one, don't put it out.
Yeah.
You know, don't be afraid of just creating, gathering people and doing something which you want to do. Don't worry about the result. You'll have way many chances to do better work later in life.